If you are looking for an ultra wide angle lens for your Sony APS-C camera, well, you have a multitude of options and quite an assortment to go through. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about a newish one from TTArtisan. Now this is an all metal manual APS-C lens. It's a 10mm f2, so ultra wide, and it comes in at just about $150 US, so pretty inexpensive. Let's begin. Construction is solid, tolerances are typically tight, and the weight of 348 grams makes this little lens feel pretty substantial in the hand. The design is nothing unusual or new unless you count this removable lens hood, but the benefit of this is that it makes this lens one of the seemingly few ultra-wides that you can use a front lens filter on, 72mm to be exact. Anyway, let's start at the rear. All metal rear lens mount with no electronics and no weather sealing. A little TTArtisan logo here, and just above it is a very slim aperture ring. This moves from f2 to f16 with nice little clicks, and it is very heavy to rotate, which I appreciate because it means the chances of me accidentally moving it are slim. In front, there is a manual focus ring with a focal distance scale in feet and meters. This manual focus ring itself has about 45 degrees of rotation, and it feels well damped with good, firm, smooth resistance. It's also silent with no metal on metal friction, which is great. There's not much else on the side of the lens. Around the front, there is a convex front lens element that has some info around it. TTArtisan logo, a super long serial number, DJ Optical, the longest top charting lens DJ of all time, and 10/2.0. Inside, there are 13 elements in 10 groups and an 8-bladed diaphragm. On a camera such as the A6700, it's a very compact f2 ultrawide. It looks alright without the additional lens hood, which is more like a lens filter holder, but I do recommend leaving this additional hood on just to protect that bulging front element from accidents, even though it does look a little strange, I suppose, from the front. I recently went on a little cruise with my family, and I took this lens with me and just decided to shoot and see what I could get with it. So all of these images are with this lens with my Sony A6700, straight out of the camera, unedited, uncorrected, unfiltered, whatever. Let's talk about the optics. And optically, I would describe this lens as good, middle of the road good. Wide open at f2, the center of the frame is decently sharp, but not in a razor-like way. The corners are a bit on the softer side, but things do improve a bit when you stop down to f2.8 and certainly f4 and f5.6. But if you wanted a sharp f5.6 lens, there's really no benefit to buying an f2 lens in the first place. So most of these samples you are seeing are at f2. Colors and contrast are pretty good with this lens, no real complaints, and really distortion is pretty well controlled. I don't know how they did it, but there's almost no chromatic aberration with this lens, which is a massive positive if you are shooting landscapes or trees or anything outside with bright contrasty skies. Now, if they could only figure this out for their other lenses, that'd be great. Flaring is a bit on the interesting side, a bit of circular shapes and slight ghosting with rainbow artifacting, but it's not the worst performance that I've seen. This lens produces some sun stars pretty quickly, a la the Nisi line of lenses if you are a fan of sun stars. There is some barrel distortion that is visible if you are shooting a flatter subject, and the vignetting is pretty heavy at f2, but it gets better as you stop the lens down a bit. Bokeh is decently smooth, no distracting elements or obvious flaws, but at this ultra-wide focal length, you don't get much of it. You have to get really close to your subject, and when you do, it looks pretty good. So here's the thing about this lens. If it was released 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever the Laowa 9mm f2.8 was at its prime, people would go nuts for it, because this is effectively that lens, maybe optically not as convincing. But at 1/3 the price, people wouldn't care and they would pick this thing up over the Laowa every single time. But nowadays, because we have such a great variety of ultra-wides, and many of those ultra-wides have autofocus, and many of them are just as compact and don't cost that much more, this lens kind of will get lost in the competition, I think. Now, I do think that a genius way of using this lens is possibly on a full frame camera with a cropped active stabilization mode, because in that case, you'd get something like a 12mm f2 lens for full frame for about $150, which is a steal. I just don't have a full frame Sony camera body with active crop stabilization, so this is video coming out of my A7C. Now, if TTArtisan adds an autofocusing motor to this lens, it would be kind of a game changer, I suppose, and it would be a lot more popular because manual lenses, similar to manual cars, nowadays are just not selling quite as quickly or quite as often, and really no one knows how to use them anymore. I'm talking about manual cars. And even though you don't have to really worry about focusing this lens that much, especially if you stop it down to, let's say, f5.6, it turns into kind of a GoPro and everything's in focus. It's really nice to just have autofocus and not have to worry about it and be able to use your lens wide open anywhere, anytime, easily. So in my eyes, it's a good lens. It's not remarkable in any single way, but for the money, it's a good performing ultra wide. And if you like the optics and the design and the price, then check out the link down below to get your own. Or if you don't, just leave a comment down in the comment section below because I enjoy reading those. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all of your likes and your support. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.